Writers, let's talk about how to improve one of the most frustrating types of scenes to write, those that involve more than two characters. And if you're a writer, you know how it gets exponentially more difficult to write these scenes the more characters that you have, for a lot of reasons. One, it's hard to write it in a way that a reader can keep track of who's who and who's doing what, but it also creates challenges in dialogue, often forcing you to use a ton of dialogue tags that kind of muck up the action of a scene. But I have a tool for you to make it easier and better, the known new contract. We'll take a look at what this is and how you can use it in your own writing. The known new contract comes from rhetorical grammar, or how to modulate grammar to achieve a desired effect. A very basic precept of rhetorical grammar is that the beginning of a sentence receives quite a lot of emphasis. That emphasis dips in the middle, but the end of the sentence receives the greatest emphasis. So knowing that, we can use those areas of emphasis to guide our reader by using the end of a sentence to introduce something new, and the beginning of the following sentence to use that new information, or what is now known, to carry us forward into something else new. Let's first look at an example of what the known new contract looks like in email correspondence. The budget is tight, but you deserve a raise. Your salary increase will begin at the start of the new fiscal year. Notice how the first sentence ends with new information about a raise, and the next sentence begins with that new information and takes us into discussion about when we might expect our raise. Now compare that to if we hadn't used the no new contract. The budget is tight, but you deserve a raise. At the start of the fiscal year, you can expect a salary increase. Yeah, you can understand what's being said, but it reads a little choppy and just half thought out. We're not really making good use of our emphasis. Before we discuss how this applies to creative writing, I want to pause and note that you shouldn't see the no new contract as necessary in every single sentence you write. For one thing, it could get pretty monotonous and tedious if every sentence picks up where the last one ended. And for another, sometimes you want rhythmic breaks and leaps in thought. It's all about the effect that you're going for. Okay, but let's say we have a scene with four characters. They've gone on a long trail hike and they've made plans to meet back up in a clearing. Anytime you have a number of characters inhabiting a scene, it can get really messy keeping track of them all for a reader, and even messier if they start talking. Let's take a look at how we might do this with the known new contract. Jenny came down the mountain first, followed by Ray. He said Connor was having some difficulty. He'd sprained his ankle on the trail. Connor appeared a moment later, leaning on Theo's shoulder as they picked their way down the rocks. Theo, who'd been quiet all morning, kept his eyes fixed on the ground, while Connor tried to laugh off the pain. Notice how we introduce Jenny up top and we end that sentence on Ray. So now that Ray is known, he introduces to us a new information about Connor. Then Connor comes along and his action introduces us to Theo. Theo then gets subject position in the final sentence, where we get some interesting character detail about both him and Connor. And notice too that we're already able to start using pronouns in place of their names, creating some variety because we know who's doing what. Compare that to another way we could have written this without consciously using the no new contract. Connor was leaning on Theo's shoulder, trying to laugh off the pain. Jenny had come down the mountain already. Theo wasn't saying anything. Ray said something about a sprained ankle. The rocks were loose underfoot. Now, maybe this effect is what you're going for, but in this example, you can see how the subject of each sentence hasn't been introduced prior, which gives us kind of a discombobulated, mashed up feel. If you're the reader, you're probably too busy keeping track of and inventorying characters to really pay attention to what they're doing. Now, how does this apply to dialogue? Here's an example using the no new contract. Jenny reached the clearing first, brushing dirt from her knees. Ray, where's Connor? She asked. He twisted his ankle on the trail. Theo's helping him down. Connor stumbled in then, leaning hard on Theo. Connor said, "Don't make such a big deal about it." Theo, still supporting him, muttered without looking up, "You nearly fell off the switchback." And let's compare that to this. Jenny reached the clearing first, brushing dirt from her knees. "Don't make such a big deal about it," Connor said to Jenny. Ray said something about Connor twisting his ankle. "You nearly fell off the switchback," Theo said to Connor. Notice how in the example that uses the known new, each line picks up with something already introduced, something known, and then uses that as a launch pad for something new. We can easily keep track of our characters without getting overwhelmed or confused. We are even able to eliminate some dialogue tags because it's pretty evident who's doing the speaking. Whereas in the example that doesn't use the known new, yeah, we kind of get the same information, but it's presented in a way and in order that feels, again, discombobulated and just kind of taxing to read. But also notice in that second one, we need dialogue tags when the character speaks, or else we wouldn't know who is speaking or who they're speaking to. It's not the case in the No New contract. Let me know in the comments any of your strategies for writing scenes with multiple characters, and check out my new novel, Her New Eyes. It's about a 68-year-old woman who gets possessed by a Marilyn Monroe. Find it wherever you get books, and please don't forget to leave a rating.